All right, welcome to the global macro update. We're going to not really get into any fundamentals or news today. Going to just dive right into the charts here. Evening truck, how's it going? Our truck nubs. Glad to see you. All right, so starting with the S&P like always. So in my opinion, just overall looking at the markets, we have the alt market that is doing very well in crypto, and we'll go over that in the later part of the video. We usually start with the equities first. But just looking on a bullish note to start off the video, we do see when we go back to the daily chart, we do see a candle that was our anchor point right here with a type B. And then we see our first touch point right here, which is our first rejection. And then we got validation with a wick and then an instant rejection down. We do see on the 1 day, the previous candle, which is a daily, has a huge bullish candle. Lots of wicks to the downside. We can see if we do zoom in closer. Lots of wicks to the upside. Previous bullish candle closed extremely high, breaking the candle closures that we had all throughout the previous 4 candles right there. We did have some bullish candles, wick to the upside, but then the 2 previous candles, we see a hammer right here with a wick to the downside, rejected right back to the upside, indicating buy pressure within the market around the 31.22 zone. And then if we just move this up a little bit like so, we do see previous resistance in mid-June with lots of wicks to the upside indicating sell pressure. So in my opinion, we've broken the zone and overall it looks pretty bullish. Next target would be this previous high, which if we do look to the left of the chart, we can see is a previous support back in January of 2019 or 2020, sorry. So I think that's going to be the next target there. And from here to that point, not super long, but it did break this descending triangle, which is, in my opinion, a pretty bullish indication, and it could see a potential continuation up. There's a huge disconnect. I completely agree that it kind of does not make sense in terms of what's going on in the actual economy. But we do see economic data like the PMI numbers actually increase, which does show potential indications that it's not as bad as what some bears would potentially think it would be. So, got to keep an open mind with this market, definitely. So that's the S&P. Overall, I think it's bullish. I think the next target is going to be the previous high because we do see, even if we do go like that, really strong level of support here. Initially retested significantly, and then now a double bottom. And we got that strong move to the upside there. So that's going to be a significant level that we would need to pass, which is pretty close to where we are right now. We could see some consolidation, like we can see right here. We had some consolidation before we actually did move to the upside. We could see something like this where we're going to be testing off a key level of resistance while holding this new level of support. We'll see how it goes. But overall, I do think the direction and the momentum is going to continue to the upside until we potentially break the support or this ascending zone, which we have here, previous levels of resistance, turn to nice new levels of support shown with many rejections with the holding of the higher lows. So I think that's going to be a key level of demand that's going to show a lot of buy pressure. If it breaks this zone, then I would have to shift my kind of thought process with the market and look for potential market structure to give me a potential move to the downside until our major level of support at around 3K to 2978, 2975 would be kind of lower half of this demand area. All right, so that's going to be the S&P overview in my personal view. Let's now go into a little bit of the Russell 2000. So we did have a potential head and shoulders, which is just consolidating for a long time here. Oops, that was not properly drawn in. We can see the left shoulder was right here, the head, and we do see this right shoulder is validated, and it has not invalidated, meaning it has not broken above this zone on the daily time frame. It's been able to hold below this area at around 1460, so we do see the sellers are present within the small caps. We see a break of this ascending zone, which was pretty well respected all throughout since kind of the bottom of March. And we're just consolidating, but the fact that it did break this ascending zone does give me a little bit of indications that sellers are in the market. But until it breaks that neckline, you cannot have any true validation of this head and shoulders. We're still in a consolidation on an uptrend, and yes, we did break this ascending zone, but the fact that we did not make a lower low, definitely, and the fact that we closed higher than the previous low still suggests that there are buyers within the market. All right, so let's look at a few other equities markets. Just looking at some comments here. How's it going, Christian? Leading edge. Not sure about what you're talking about, to be completely honest. I do not know that information. He's talking about, you can look at the comments if you'd like. NASDAQ is going to be the next topic of the video. Huge bullish move. You can see it. We actually retested that previous resistance really well. Candle closures. I did adjust this a little bit. It was at the candle high there, but I put it the candle closure as well as respected the candle high in the previous 4-hour candle. And then we got a type B, which is 2 candle closures. And then we got that type A, which is just a wick. And then we do see we retested, which is a pretty wide wedge. Some people, if they do look back, could probably draw it in a way that isn't broken yet, potentially somewhere like that. But in my personal belief, if the overall S&P is at least consolidating slowly up, grinding up, or especially if it's breaking out, the NASDAQ is absolutely going to explode. Obviously, this is that home stocks, so definitely if you're looking to short it, the NASDAQ is not the one to be looking at. Volatility did drop. There was a little bit of move to the upside here where we did see a huge bullish candle try to get into our previous consolidation zone between the resistance of 36, let's say $37, and the support of around $30.50. And then we see huge rejections to the downside from the sellers, not able to push it within the previous resistance zone. So then we could see a fade, something like this, where we get a just slow descent down, which would be a pretty bullish overall structure within the index, this volatility index, because when volatility is going to the downside, the S&P is slowly chugging along, and then it's a great risk on sentiment where more speculative instruments and investments and trades kind of go for longer and really end up working out, compared to when you have huge moves in volatility where there's fear, uncertainty, worry in the market. It's a little bit harder to manage unless you are a short seller or kind of have that strategy in place where you're looking for opportunity when there is fear and worry in the markets. But in my opinion, it just does look like we are going to slowly fade off, which in my opinion is good for overall risk on kind of more flowy, understandable markets, in my opinion, just being able to follow the market structure on a trend. All right, so that's the overall United States overview. We're now going to get into the global markets here. We got the Nikkei 225 on the left top, and then on the bottom we got the ASX. On the right we got the FTSE 100, the UK 100, and then on the bottom we got the DAX, which is the German exchange. So on the DAX, let's start off there. Pretty strong move to the upside. It's actually been relatively strong compared to the other indexes. The FTSE has been definitely weak. We do see quite a bit of a recovery. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the DAX, initially, we do see previous levels of resistance turn to new level of support, creating a nice market structure, higher high and higher low. Now opening to the upside, making a bullish push. So it does look like we're testing that previous high. Looking pretty strong, looking pretty bullish. So overall, definitely on a global scale, it does look like we're continuing the risk on sentiment to the upside. And I think we're going to be able to see that definitely in crypto markets and alts, because there's some things moving, as well as in the overall global markets we can see, which is kind of surprising because gold's doing all right, but silver is actually doing phenomenal. And we were talking about silver outperforming gold, and we'll talk about why later on. Just going to get some water here. All right, so the next thing we're going to go to, let's just talk about the FTSE 100. did form a lower low, and let's just really close this because that was not too respected. Did make a fake out here. If you were an intraday trader, you might have traded that. Definitely, you can see out of the different indexes, if you had to choose one to long, it wouldn't, in my opinion, make sense to trade the FTSE 100 long, because if you're looking at the DAX, if you're looking at the Japanese stock market exchange index and Nikkei 225, even the Australian stock, it just does not make sense to long this particular index out of all of them, unless you have some fundamental understanding of why this particular one is going to outperform as a long, in my personal opinion, just in terms of relative strength. ASX is looking pretty good. Did make a higher low, which is great to see, and a higher high, and then did not really hold that previous high as a new level of support, which would be great market structure like we see on the DAX. But overall, looking pretty strong and not absolutely breaking that previous high, but slowly chugging along is not a bad market condition to be in if you're looking at more speculative instruments and trades. Like I said before, Japanese stock market's not doing too bad either. Definitely better than the UK, but still holding that previous resistance, as we can see right here, not really being able to break above that previous high. But overall bullishness is strong. We did see that we were able to hold that previous higher low, so right around there. So we do see we are forming a series of higher lows, breaking, closing, trying to go above this previous series of horizontal levels of resistance. So this would be classified as an ascending triangle, which is a bullish pattern on an uptrend. So if we have a break in the resistance, high potential move to the upside until our next level of resistance, which would be the next high right there. So that's going to be the global markets. Now going to be quickly looking at the US dollar currency index, which makes sense that it's going down because we see bullishness all around in the equities markets, right? If someone is buying stocks and buying equities, buying indexes, whatever it is, they're selling the currency. And where is a lot of the currency and money and capital flowing to? It would be in US markets, right? So it makes sense that the US dollar is weakening quite a bit right now, in my personal opinion. And we can see that with this descending channel. We can adjust this a little bit here. But overall, we do see a series of lower lows and lower highs. And there's quite a bit of weakness overall within the US dollar. It's definitely weaker than Euro. It's definitely weaker than Swiss franc and the other safe havens. I don't know if it's weaker than JPY. We can take a look at that chart. Christian says, can you look at JPY later? I think it has broken uptrend, and I would just like another opinion. Also, with your trend lines, do you start them from the top wick or where the candle closes? So it depends. I use a 3 validation rule, so I need to have 3 valid points in order for me to use that as a respected zone within whatever structure I'm using. So if there's only 2, like right here, if there was only 2 touches of a zone, I would only use that as a potential level. And then once I get that 3rd validation, then I can say, yes, that is a valid level. And in terms of a trend line, in my opinion, is somewhat of an art. You have to be, back testing, simulation trading a shit ton in order to kind of see trend lines within the chart that you would look at and have that as like a limited variable, because on a horizontal level it's really easy to see where, like you said exactly, if you're trading on different time frames, candles close at different points. So you could say, okay, I'm only going to use the highs and lows. But sometimes structures don't really work like that. You get candle closes right at key levels, and those are significant zones as well. So you have to consider how a candle closes within the structure and how you use those candle closes versus wicks in your structure as potential valid zones. So we have our method of identifying how we use, type it. Basically A, which would be this, just a wick, instantly rejecting off a certain price point, and then you have a type B, which would be a candle close with a candle closure right at that level, and you can have a wick that is far extended beyond. So for example, You could have this as a candle closure, and this wick candle closure would be a type B because the candle closed right at that level, but the wick extended beyond that, and that would be another potential valid level. And you can break it down to try to understand and limit as many variables when you're backtesting and implementing in your system in order to make it dependable and your stats actually providing you good output and going to be similar to what you're actually going to trade with live capital. That's the ultimate goal, is to have a system in which you can test it in paper trading or simulation, whatever it is, and then implement it and transition that with back-tested results, saying, okay, I have this win-loss ratio as well as a risk reward on a series of 100 trades, 50 trades, whatever your sample size is, whatever you trade maybe in like a couple months or a month. I know what the averages are going to be. So then when you're trading using that system and you don't deviate, you can have confidence that over that similar period, ideally, if your psychology is not getting in the way, you're going to have a similar result at the end of the sample size, which would be maybe a month or 2 months. And if it's not even close, it's not even in the ballpark of what you had when you're simulation trading or paper trading, well, then that might have to do with your psychology. Are you implementing your actual rules and strategy and method into your live trading? And if not, well, then that's just between your ears. You have to get better at that. It's definitely not easy, but over time you understand yourself a lot more, and you can create strategies that will allow you to make sure you get that habit out of you, because some people have a really hard time, for example, holding on to winners, where you can use like an indicator to say, I will not sell until this price crosses that certain indicator, like parabolic saw or moving averages, whatever it may be. That's a potential way to basically limit your short-term winning trades from getting into long runners, and trying to make your strategy work with your characteristics of who you are as a person. All right, so we'll get into FX. Actually, we'll get into FX right now because this is currencies, which definitely would fit in. So we can actually put it right here because this really doesn't matter too much in terms of our overall analysis. It obviously matters in terms of the amount of people who die. Don't want to get that mixed up. All right, so RJPY. Let's look here. Yeah, well, it's extremely bullish, that's for sure. Yeah, I would say it's trying to reach that previous high of 76,580, around there. Definitely. And you got a series of nice higher lows there with a previous ascending wedge. That's awesome to see. So then if you get a resistance right there and a previous series of higher lows support, that would be a nice candle closure. Is maybe unable to get it. Don't think we'll want that. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So that would be the ascending wedge that melted to the upside, indicating that there was a tremendous amount of buy pressure. This would be the retest, and I would think that as long as the buy pressure is coming to the upside, we retested this previous resistance as a new level of support right now. A little bit of sell pressure coming in on the previous 2-day candle, which isn't great to see, but we could potentially draw a nice descending zone, and then if we get maybe a descending triangle, descending wedge within this retest zone, that would be great to see. But I'm just going to finish drawing this nice melt up ascending wedge here right there, and then I would leave that, and I think I can hold that previous wick. Oh, that did not close where I want it to. Right there. Perfect. All right, so we're now going to dive into the smaller time frames. Looking at the daily, got a nice level which we'll probably identify on a smaller time frame, but it's going to be around right there. And let's just bring that a little bit closer. So definitely overall bullish. I would say, making higher highs and higher lows. The next key level that I'd be looking at would be, actually I'm probably not going to move that, would be around 76.50 to 76.17 or 76.18. That would be definitely a potential high that you would be looking for, depending on what your time frame you're looking to trade. Right around there, that would be my next target. So let's just make that nice and red for a potential level of supply. And then when we are looking at within the structure, because if we are looking at structure, oops, don't want that. That would be the size. So then that would be a potential next level that we'd be looking for in order to complete the structure for this ascending triangle. And then if you are looking within the triangle, very nice solid bounce on the previous support, which is a resistance right there. And then let's just dive into the smaller time frames. Oops, don't need that right now. Yeah, we see that nice level of support holding multiple times. Previous high got broken right there. And then, sorry, my dog is barking. Hopefully you can bear with that. So we're going to basically dive into the smaller time frames and see what we can identify here. Lots of wicks to the downside, and we broke out of this zone here, which was an extremely significant level within the structure. And then we also see a series of higher lows, which we can see create an ascending triangle move to the upside. And if we do get a retest, that could be potentially a nice move. Do have a resistance zone, but overall I do think that it's looking a lot more bullish. Let's get this in white as well. So this is going to be a major level of support right around here, as well as this zone, which is a previous resistance, which is going to be a new level of support. He's not happy with you. Yeah, he's not the most quiet dog, let's just say. He's very vocal, but you know, that's okay. He definitely has some good attributes. So overall, I would say that this has a potential bottom, and we broke that previous high, which was significant. We are currently in a risk-on environment. The S&P broke to the upside. It could retest and have a little bit of a consolidation like we talked about, which would kind of make sense, contract in volatility a little bit. The VIX would then fade a little bit further. This could have a move to the upside, retesting this previous 74.54 area. So then let's just find something that may look... So 13, so we're kind of trying to think about the weekend, which may be a little bit difficult. Kind of maybe something like this. Oops, that's not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. So I'm kind of thinking something like this, potentially. We'll get a move to the upside right here. We'll probably hit some level of resistance, which was a key level of support. We'll consolidate, break to the upside because this was a significant level. And if we go back, we do see key level of resistance. Maybe if we go to a different time frame, we can see lots of wicks to the upside. This is also, if we really look back, a key level within this head and shoulders structure. So overall, I do think that's going to be some hesitation, but overall opinion of AUDJPY would be bullish. It does look like we've created a potential bottom, but it'd be nice to see a validation and to really see wicks from this previous resistance turning into a new level of support. If you really wanted some confirmation, you would then look for this zone, break and validation of this support zone right here, and then your potential target would be this zone around 75, and if it goes beyond, that's great, but you can get some pretty decent risk rewards in my opinion if you're looking for a validation of this zone, maybe somewhere around here, low of that previous low. If you're looking at maybe 2.4, which isn't phenomenal, if you're really looking to reduce risk right there, you can maybe get like a 3, 3.5, depending on, you know, what your entry and stop loss is, but anything over 2, I'm pretty happy with. And that's just my personal opinion, but obviously you'd like to let it run if you do see a potential break in the previous resistance zone. But that's my current opinion. Don't know exactly what your overall time frame that you're looking to trade in, but my personal opinion, the overall sentiment is bullish, and the Australian dollar has been relatively a strong currency compared to most of the other risk-on currencies that are in the major pairs. And then we also see the Japanese yen be weaker than most of the risk-off currencies like the euro and Swiss franc. USD has been pretty weak as well, but the Japanese yen and USD has been pretty flat overall. We did have that pretty big bump and then a huge move to the downside on USD JPY. So if we're looking at this zone, this move here, huge move to the upside, huge move down, and we've just been consolidating, especially on the daily chart there. But you know, you could really choose either one. They're both extremely weak. So if you're looking at Euro USD, it does look like Euro is going to potentially break out here, which would be indicating that the Euro is strengthening compared to the US dollar. And if you're looking at almost any single currency, it's strengthening against the dollar right now. I'm just going to look at this potential one. ZAR USD. Maybe it's USD ZAR, which has more liquidity. Yes. Wow. Yeah. This is a opportunity for some carry cost. Yeah, no problem, Christian. I'm happy to provide my 2 thoughts, or my 2 cents, I should say. My thoughts or my 2 cents. Bonds are consolidating, which makes sense. Not a whole lot to talk about there. All right, so let's talk about the metals, and then we'll get to a little bit of crude oil. So silver has been doing awesome. Really happy with it so far. Going to be holding it. No reason for me to really sell or anything. Held that previous resistance for a new level of support. Didn't even hit that previous resistance really. So overall, really great move on silver. I've completely removed risk, and I have 0 risk on the table right now. And I'm just going to let it run. Current potential area of take profit is around 19.6, 19.59, somewhere around there. But we'll see how it goes. It's looking really strong. And if it's going to keep on rising, I'm happy to hold on to it for longer, obviously. Gold has not been performing as well, which I'm happy that I'm not really in gold. It did break to the upside from this ascending wedge, which I was a little bit worried about that it wasn't going to break, but we were not really going to commit to any opinion. Obviously, we had to let the price action speak for us. We're not going to try to have a bias. Price action is going to be always king. So what we did is we waited. if gold went and moved to the upside, that would indicate for us that we would even be more confident and have a higher conviction on silver that would move to the upside. And once this did break up, I had very high conviction that silver was going to go up. Personal opinion. But what we currently see right now is gold is hesitating here. It did close a little bit lower than the previous low, so we could create a little bit of a potential series of, not really, don't really like that. I'm mainly just going to stick to see if I can connect the higher lows, which would then be squeezing the price between a series of lower lows and a strong level of support or demand, buy pressure, keeping the price above this around 1800, 1795 zone. So let's now look at the smaller time frames. We got a key level of resistance at around 1900, which is going to be the next level of significance that, in my opinion, gold could reach overall with the currency proliferation happening globally. Just definitely makes sense that gold and silver are going to be moving to the upside. Gold and silver ratio, which is really shifting to the downside aggressively, which we'll talk about next, in my opinion, signifies that we are in a metals bull run and we should be looking for opportunities in the metals market, especially silver, because it's going to be what they call a higher beater, so it's going to be more volatile, what they would consider alts to be considered with Bitcoin. Awesome opportunities on the upside. Obviously, it's going to be a worse fall on the downside if you are holding the bag. Obviously, long-term investments are going to be different than if you're like holding an absolute shitcoin that you thought was going to be bad anyway, but you are not really properly like reviewing it. I don't exactly know how everyone thinks in the world, but looking on to the smaller time frames here, very nice squeeze on the 1 hour. Really happy to see that. Let's just make that nice and red and then create a nice projection right there. So we got two potential zones, but we do have to consider that there is a couple wicks to the upside, so we could get a situation where there's going to be resistance right there, but I'm initially going to put that zone there. I'd like to see key levels of resistance broken as well, so the current key level of resistance that would need to be broken before I look for any longs would be the 1807 range. We do see a previous level of support turn into a new level of resistance with lots of wicks to the upside, indicating sell pressure coming into the market. And then we do see, if we are a little bit late to the party, if we're entering or whatever, we could be looking at 1850 as a potential level of a retest in the continuation to the upside, or if you get a nice entry at this breakout, and if you're looking to add to a very potential profitable position, and if you get a retest at this zone and you get some consolidation, like you can see here, you get a pretty big pump, and then you get a consolidation, and then you get another pump. Don't exactly know how the pump's going to go, but if you get something like this and you get a nice consolidation, you can really manage your risk extremely well, and you will get these unfortunate wicks to the downside sometimes, depending on how tight you want to set it, but it's not really hard to get a minimum of a 2-to-1 here if you're looking at a move to the upside compared to the risk of a potential loss to the downside. Worth a look if it does appear, in my opinion. But let's close that. But gold does look pretty good, and we are contracting in volatility, meaning that we have failed to make a higher high or even held a high. We've actually made a lower high, so then we connect the lower highs and squeeze the price between a strong level of demand, which is at 1790. So we can even draw a little kind of midpoint, which is going to be right around there. And we just like to make it small and white, just to show us where kind of the middle of the contraction is within the volatility, like we drew in within our ascending wedge. So if gold breaks out of this, I think silver is going to absolutely rock it. Silver's already looking extremely bullish with the symmetrical triangle. So let's actually look at the gold and silver chart right now, and then we're going to dive into silver. which we talked about, since before this breakout. When it broke out, we said retested, tiny bit of consolidation, but yeah, it's already up like at basically almost $19, and we were at 18, so almost $1. But we're now going to talk about the gold and silver ratio first before getting into silver. So we can see that we've actually formed a pretty nice top here. Really weak series of higher highs and higher lows, and then we failed to make a high, and we made a lower high. We can see wick and then wick. So we made a lower high, and then we held the previous support as a new level of resistance, and then we did that yet again. So structurally speaking, it's on a downtrend, and we can create a descending zone right there and a descending zone right there. So it looks very similar to the US dollar chart, actually. So if we take a picture of this and look at the US dollars, so we would look right here. So that's the US dollar, and that is the gold and silver ratio. So it looks pretty similar in my opinion. So that makes sense, right? If the dollar's weakening, if it's losing value, if people want to put their money in precious metals, there's going to be more bids in the precious metals, which means that there could be a potential bull run in metals. And if there's a bull run in metals, what can we look back to in previous historic events that happened? Look at the 1970s, and especially like the late 1970s. In America, they had a huge gold bull market, and silver went up and appreciated at a greater rate compared to gold. So if you are looking into trading or even investing in the metals sector, potentially look at silver. It's not investment advice, but do a little bit of research, and I think that putting some portion of capital as an investment in silver, in my opinion, may potentially be a good idea, where if you're trading it, it's just going to be a more volatile instrument to get you some awesome risk rewards. So pretty interesting to see. I did not really plan that, but once I saw it, I was like, that looks similar. That looks similar to something I've seen before. So silver looks pretty awesome. Like I said, held that previous resistance, new level of support, and it's just moving along fine and dandy. So don't really have much else to add on that. Let's get right into the crypto market here. Anyone have any questions? Definitely don't hesitate to drop them in the comments, and we can go over a chart or get in depth into, I guess, a certain trade, or not trade, but a certain price action chart, or whatever you really want to get into. Yeah, my dog really likes barking. Very vocal guy for sure. So let's get right into the crypto market here. So what we're going to be doing is going to be basically looking at BTC and Ethereum for the current video, and then we're going to get into a bunch of alts within the Performante Premium video, which is just going to be for the people who are in Performante Premium. So we do a whole relative strength and weakness analysis to understand which alts we should be looking at for this upcoming week, as well as throughout the week. We will post a video or two depending on how aggressive some alts are moving, if they need new analysis and all that stuff. But overall, that's going to be what we're going to be doing. So let's first look at BTC on a large time frame, and then we'll jump into a smaller time frame here. So we did squeeze, and we're not really moving much in BTC, but the possibility of it moving higher with the aggression that these alts are moving up is, for me, making me believe that it could be moving to the upside a little bit more. I was hesitant to say that it would break up. I was more thinking that it's going to be breaking down. And the reason why we're thinking breaking up and down, if some people who are watching which may not know, is we look at this chart pretty extensively. It's on the weekly, so we're talking about something that doesn't really move until 1 week has completed. But in terms of the decreasing volatility that we're seeing, I think it's phenomenal. And I think what's going to be coming up in the future, that's going to be pretty soon, is we will have an extremely significant move in BTC. Either upside or downside. I was thinking downside for quite some time, but with this current market, could be upside and we could see a huge move here. But I'm going to be open-minded about the direction. All I would like to see Bitcoin do is to continue the consolidation and contract in volatility, which would reduce this chart. And we can see Bitcoin's volatility extremely low, like we saw back in October, which then breeded the huge move from 6K to 3.2. And then we had extremely low volatility in March of 2019, which created the move from 4.2K breakout all the way to 14K. So if we see volatility as low as those previous times or even lower, I'm going to expect an extremely aggressive move from Bitcoin in the future. So it's just something that's a little bit more macro that I'm looking at. All right, so next thing we're going to be looking at is the total 2. Just got a little bit of water. So this is going to be the overall cryptocurrency market cap excluding Bitcoin. So what this shows is the altcoin market cap, right? It does include Ethereum, so a lot of it is going to include or look similar to the ETH USDT chart, but overall, we do see previous levels of resistance hold as new levels of support. We are getting into a pretty significant level of resistance right here. We do see previous lower high, lower high, lower high. We're going to see some level of resistance. We do see significant rejections at these previous lows. So we are forming a strong base, which is great, but overall, we are slowly weakening. I would potentially draw an ascending zone there, an ascending zone there, so it could be a potential ascending wedge or an ascending channel, which would then create some market structure in the series of higher highs and higher lows. But I'm just depending on these horizontal zones to give me a little bit of a gauge of where the altcoin market is. But the fact that we broke this previous resistance, in my opinion, is pretty significant, and we do see a lot of alts running. All right, next thing we're going to be looking at is the BTC dominance. So this is the Bitcoin dominance. So in the entire cryptocurrency market cap, what percentage of the market cap is Bitcoin? And currently it's 63.6% of the entire cryptocurrency market cap is just Bitcoin. So we can see the significance of this single cryptocurrency compared to every other alt in the market, right? Ethereum does take a significant chunk of the altcoin market, but in terms of BTC, it's going to really be your indicator of if you should be looking into alts or maybe not. So we've been in an uptrend on this chart, which means that BTC has been taking more of the market share. And we know that Bitcoin, on average, over looking at, the hundreds of alts that are on these different exchanges, Bitcoin is going to hold its value at a better rate compared to the majority of these alts. Yes, there are some outliers that are performing at a much higher rate of appreciation compared to BTC. For example, BNB as well as Link. Cardano recently has been on an absolute roar. So there are alts that are doing much better compared to BTC. But overall, if you put your money, for example, in Litecoin 2 years ago, you are at a much lower level of capital compared to BTC or some of these other alts. Some of them didn't even exist at that point, but that's just my basic overview of alts. And what this chart tells me is you should be in alts, right? We broke this series of higher lows, and I do want to be a little bit cautious of a potential level right around maybe right here, but overall, we're now in a downtrend. In my opinion, we're creating a series of lower lows and lower highs, and we broke this ascending zone. This was a very significant squeeze with a series of lower highs and higher lows, and we made a impulse push to the downside. We may get a corrective move to retest this zone. We don't exactly know, which would be a significant drop in altcoins and a comeback in BTC. It could just be BTC making a huge impulse push to the upside, like an absolute monster of a push. And what we could see is the short-term dominance of BTC spike up, because alts may not be as aggressive in moving up, but then you might see that fade. And then what we've been seeing in the past is this fade and then a pullback and then a fade when Bitcoin dominance is lost. So overall, definitely we should be looking in alts, and that is what we're going to be looking at a little bit later in this Performante Premium video. So that's going to be my analysis on all these different indicators that I use to gauge the cryptocurrency market. We do see BTC longs and shorts, which is just in the Bitfinex exchange. Overall, not a tremendous amount of volume coming and going. I don't really look at this too extensively, but that is going to be my overall video for the Sunday night global market update. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. But I will close the recording right now, so then I can kind of cut it off at a decent time, trying to get it under an hour. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you thought this video was useful, educational, just hit my hand, informative, it'd be great if you would like it. It helps us out, and it would be great if you subscribe as well. If you do like our videos and would like more, lets us know that you do enjoy them, and we should continue to make them. So thank you very much. Hopefully you had a great weekend, and hopefully you will have a great trading week for this upcoming week. So thank you very much, and until next time, have a good one. Alright, cool. So that was the end of the video. If you have any questions, definitely don't hesitate to drop them right now. But I am going to start the altcoin video here pretty soon for the students in our premium service. So don't really see any questions coming in. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. And until next time, have a good one, everyone.